Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hurdlers of Adversity, Inspirers and Maximizers of Pivotal Moments. You're on. It's JR with LinkedIn Live. We got YouTube pushing. We have the Facebook group going. So come on in the room. Come in the room. This is the room where it happens, right? It's what's his manual? I love that song. The room where it happens. 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 So we're all up in the room where it happens, everybody. So welcome, get on in, get your face in the place right now. I want to know where you are streaming in from. I'm going to go back. If you see me looking over here, I'm going to my comments section. I wanted to see where you're coming in. Just put that in the chat box. I know we got 4 people on live right now. So just where are you coming in from? I want to know where you are scoping in from today. And you better not be telling me you're in front of CNN or Fox News right now. You need to be right here because this is all about it. What's going on, LinkedIn user? Hey, what's happening? So this is how it's going. Like, I bet it's got to be Lynn. It's got to be Lynn. So good afternoon to each and every one of you. And thank you for joining in with us. Once again, my name is John Register, and you're on Hurdles of Adversity, Inspirers and Maximizers of Pivotal Moments. We have another amazing guest that's on. Charlotte's in the house. That's Lynn for sure. And we just want to make sure that you are feeling welcome and that you are in here right now. So if you're watching, comment. This is a show that we always are trying to comment, getting some echo. Uh-oh, that's not good. So I had this happen. This was another issue that was happening on another show I had, not mine, but another person's. So is it still echoing right now? Just let me know, because I don't want to have to start over again, but I may have to do it. If there's some echo still going, just let me know in the chat so I know that I can shut up and get back moving again. But if not, I'm going to just I'm just going to push on. So thank you all for commenting on the post. Thank you all for engaging, for sharing, because we've had some amazing guests on, and today's guest is off the charts. So I can't wait to share with that. So Joe says no, it's better now. Says Lynn, thank you so much. I appreciate that, because I'm freestyling here. I'm freestyling because I look at the chat and see what you're all telling me. Because you're the greatest. You're the greatest fans. You're the greatest audience. I really appreciate all of you. So let's go back. If you don't know, if you're on with me for the first time, I always start this way because some people are just new and they just don't know who I am and why I do these shows. So at 5:29 in the afternoon on May 17th, 1994, I was one of the world's fastest 400-meter hurdlers. I was ranked top 8 in the United States, top 20 in the world. It was a new event for me, and I was on my way downward. And as the great Edwin Moses said to me, he said, "You were on my same trajectory path." And I was just trying to make it happen. I was also in the United States Army and had gone to Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I was on my way to Officer Candidate School. But on May 17, 1994 at 5:30, I misstepped a hurdle, dislocated my left knee, severed the artery behind the kneecap, and 7 days later, because of complications, became an amputee. It was my wife that kind of stopped my downward spiral as trying to figure out my identity, right? And she says, "You know what, John, we're going to get through this moment together. This is just our new normal." So we took that phrasing, and I took that phrasing, and I took that kind of mantra to begin pushing into spaces of being able to grow. So you look at the Olympic model, right, of Citius, Altius, Fortius, swifter, higher, stronger. We notice that those words are not written in the superlative of the word. It's not the highest form of the word. It's not swiftest, highest, or strongest, but they're written with that ER stem ending, which means we can have our best performances today and be even better tomorrow. The ER means that we can be the swiftest today and swifter tomorrow. We can jump the highest today, jump higher tomorrow. We can be the strongest today and be even stronger tomorrow. And that's what I started doing. Every day I would try to get a little bit better than I was the day before. And that was that new normal mindset. So the new normal was never a destination for me. It was only a plateau by which we grow. And I think that's what I always share with the audiences right now. So I grew. I started for physical therapy. And instead of going to the 1996 Olympic Games, I went to the 1996 Paralympic Games in the sport of swimming. If you can imagine that. I saw athletes running and jumping on the track with artificial legs. I said, I got to get one of those things made for me. And then 4 years later, after relearning how to run, relearning how to jump, I jumped to the silver medal over in Sydney, Australia, capturing the American record in the process. And so that's kind of my story journey of the athleticism. But after that, we always continue to grow. We always want to build legacy. So I was hired by the United States Olympic Committee Paralympics Division, and I started the Paralympic Military Sport Program. And that I say that in this month because this is Veterans Appreciation Month. And that sport program grew into the Warrior Games. It grew into Prince Harry's Invictus Games. And we have some other things that we're going to be doing with that as well. So stay tuned for that. But today, I just want to celebrate each one and every one of you. Now, I see somebody says that it's working now. It's better now. So that's great. So keep on chatting in, chiming in. Invite your friends right now because this is going to be a great show. Invite them into the room because we want that to happen. So I got Tracy. That's my assistant. She says everything's going good on the other end. So this is awesome. So let's get started. Let's chat and share. And we want to know the question I have for you right now, as I always ask, is here is the question. Who was, put in the chat box, who was the silver medalist, 1984 Olympic Games, 400-meter hurdles? Put that in the chat box. I want to know. All right. So you should know if you look at the title of the show. I'm just saying. So let's chat and share. My guests are always unconquerables of pivotal moments, and that's what we are talking about here today. And she is just off the charts brilliant. My guest holds a special place in my heart because she is a 400-meter hurdler, and 400-meter hurdlers are just a different breed of athlete. We're just different. It is a hard race, and just when the lactic acid builds in the muscles at about 300 meters, you have a couple more hurdles to go, and then a 40-meter sprint off the back end to try to win the race. But she was exceptional at this race, dominated in the early mid 80s, and just crushed the game. Set the standard for a lot of women and how they run the race right now for some of the ones we see in the race. So she's a standard bearer, and she leaves legacy for people. I love the word legacy. Lynn Keir, she gets it right. Look at this. Boom. Miss the doctor, Judi Brown Clarke. Absolutely. So I want to do the particulars, and I'm going to leave that up there because Lynn gets the gold star for this. So she is down and hip to what I do every time. Her accolades, right? Like I said, silver medal, 1984 Olympic Games. Sports Illustrated Sportswoman of the Year in 1987 for her community involvement, because she's just more than an athlete. She has a voice, and she uses that voice to elevate others. She continues to lead on and off the track by working with employee resource groups, advisory groups for bottom-up impacts that support innovation and facilitate top-down institutional sustainability and growth. Please welcome Olympic silver medalist, Sports Illustrated 1987 Sportswoman of the Year, and VP for Equity and Inclusion for Storybrooke U, the good doctor, Judi Brown Clarke. Absolutely. There she is, everybody. What?
Hey, John. Hello, everyone.
I am so excited that you are on with us. Thank you for saying yes.
Oh, my gosh. Listen, has anyone told you no? No. If you need me to do something, I am your teammate for life. So I would do anything for you.
Oh, thank you. I so much appreciate it. So much you being on. So let's jump into this, and
Sure.
I'll take Lynn off right now. Thank you, Lynn, for always playing.
Thank you, Lynn.
And then she corrected. She says, "Doctor." We got to put that out there for our athletes, right? Because a lot of times people just think athletes are just out there going to do their sport, and then that's it. Hang up the spikes, and we're done. But no, we are not done.
Neck up and neck down.
Absolutely. What do they say about the body and the mind? You know that. Yeah, they're all aligned.
Yeah. Right. Your body can't be elite if your mind isn't aligned with all the action. That's just, it's a muscle. It's a muscle.
So we got that'll preach right there. So here's my first question. Have you been? You see what's going on in Colorado Springs now. Have you been out to the Olympic Training Center? Not the training center, but the actual Olympic and Paralympic Museum now? Have you seen that yet?
I have not. The last time I was there, it was still being built. So it was still, the horizontal had been in place, and they were just starting the vertical. So I have not seen it since its completion. Only pictures.
You got to come out.
I
It's
will.
incredible. Oh my God, it's goosebumps. I've been there 5 times now.
Oh, wow. I've heard such really, really moving experiences of how it captures the Olympic spirit.
You were talking a little bit earlier. We were talking about the mind is connected to the body, right? And
Yeah.
the body might be doing 90% of the work, but the mind controls at 10% controls the 90%. And one of the things I love about the museum is the honoring of the 1980 team that when the U.S. boycotted underneath President Jimmy Carter. They have a whole wall dedicated to all the athletes that missed out on those games. And some that were, were in 76, of course, they got a chance to compete. Or I'm sorry, yeah. And then some in 84 that got a chance to compete, but the ones also that missed out in 80. So it's the most moving thing in the museum. And the second best thing I love in the museum is my artificial leg. It's historically there, right in front of Serena Williams' signed tennis ball and shoe, because I always have a leg up on Serena, as I always say.
I think that's really beautiful. And just to touch on that, it's like, you really, we look and we can admire sports for the victory, but we don't really know the cost and what it means to be a participant of things that you don't have control of. So I really appreciate the fact that you highlighted the 1980 Olympic team and their inability to compete.
Yeah, it's just knowing. I mean, and so for kind of having both kind of sides of the coin, because in 88, I was just getting out of school. I mean, I went to the Olympic trials, but I wasn't, I was more starstruck than anything else. And then in 92, I found my event. Yeah. Right. And I really think it was because of Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I couldn't run the high hurdles anymore. I couldn't get under 13.5. And I was like, nah. So my coach said, let's switch to the 400s because you ran indoors, 45.7. You can let's switch. So I said, oh okay.
Me too. Wait, what? What's this?
Wait, what? One time, right? So that was so switching in my 5th race ever, I qualified for the trials. So I said, this is it. This is golden. I love this race. It's all set out for you. So how was it for you? How was, because you're, you medal in this, for you in your training, your preparation, and your psyche around just this one lap around the track over these 10 obstacles?
So you have to remember, in 1984, that was the first time the 400-meter hurdles were in the Olympics, because it was thought that women could not run that kind of a robust race. And so it really had to be advocated and championed to actually be the inaugural. So there was a lot of real bias around, is this actually going to be a competitive race that kind of rivals, the Open 400, 200, and other sprint or long sprint races. So it's really important that we did well, because, if there weren't a presence, then I don't think you would have the argument to really maintain it as an ongoing standard race within the Olympic Games. So there was a lot of pressure to make sure that we were competitive, and that we showed, both from a female perspective, but also from a national perspective, a good competitive showing. So
what was the strategy like, because I know that like with USA Track and Field, they're different, kind of, for lack of a better word, departments, right? So you have the sprints, you have the hurdles and sprints, you have the jumps, horizontal jumps, vertical jumps, we have LDR, long distance running. So we got all that going on. So, and each one's kind of advocating for how they're going to show up. What was it around sprint hurdles that you were all talking about? And were you talking internationally or just kind of in the US?
I think it was international, because there were women that were running it internationally. And so they were like the University Games and Pan Am Games. And so the 400-meter hurdles were in those other races. They just hadn't been on the platform of the Olympic Games. So I think it was an international conversation. But I do believe that if there hadn't been really this catalytic platform of, like, when Nawal won, and really placed Africa on the Olympic stage, for women, as far as, the first African to win an Olympic medal, male or female. It was a gold medal. I just think that it's changed because it was so profound.
You're talking about with Morocco and Noel.
Yes, yeah, right. But PT Usha was in fourth place and just missed the third, and so she was like the first Indian woman who would have medaled, and so there was like this incredible, iconic, finals and what that meant well beyond sport. It was so much bigger than sport.
So when you talk about this experience, right, there are a lot of people that they want to know the athlete experience. They want to know what's it like to walk through the tunnel, come out to the opening ceremony. If you even, march, a lot of times athletes won't even do it because this is more important than the walking out. But for you, what do you share with people about this moment, this kind of silver medal moment that you had?
So it probably, and so I didn't do the opening ceremonies because it was a whole week before I competed. So I didn't come in until the weekend before, so the middle of the Olympics. I did the closing ceremony. So for me, something that was really profound that happened to me in the middle of the race, and we're talking about 54 seconds, and it's amazing how you can have an incredible, profound experience, as I know and it changes who you are, and it really just kind of rewires who you are. So in the middle of the race, I was dead last, slow start, lane 8, worst lane I could be in. And I literally was having this conversation with myself, kind of justifying, well, I'll just say I'm in lane 8, I'm not fast. So I was like coming up with excuses as to why I didn't do well, which is, I really shouldn't share that. But in the middle of it, it really became this real reframing of, all the work I had done, the sacrifices and so on. And then I just really got in the zone, and it was like, you picked off 9th place, 8th, 7th, 6th, 5, 4, 3, 2. And then, Noel had been on the inside of the track. I was on the outside of the track. So I didn't really see her until I came off the last hurdle, and I just couldn't close enough. So it's, and everything happens for a reason, or everything deserves a meaning. That's what I always say in my life. And so the meaning was really looking at what that meant for her as this iconic woman. The same thing with PT Usha, and just, showing that women could run this really grueling race, and then everything else that leveraged from it. So it's had a multiplier well beyond sport, and it continues to serve me well, and everything I do and accomplish is based off of lessons and tools and strategies from sport.
I love that. So the reason I ask is because there was this Nike commercial with the amazing Lisa Leslie, and I was like, oh, remember that? So she's dribbling, slow motion. She goes up and she dunks the basketball. It's a beautiful commercial. And then the announcer comes on and says, "You don't win silver, you lose gold."
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. Until I won the silver medal.
yeah. Once you get a silver, and you're like, well, damn, right.
And I love how you put that, like the lessons that we learned. And so the lesson I learned in that moment, and I'm still learning lessons from it, is that one is, and I tell people this now, is, so what you're saying is, when they say something to me like, oh, you almost had the gold. I said, well, what you're saying is I'm entitled to something I had not earned. Is that right? And two, what does that say about the champion? Did they not deserve that? I mean, did they not?
Right, I gave it away. Right, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think I was training for the silver medal? Is that what you're saying?
Right, yeah. No, not at all. Right, exactly.
Right.
To your point, I think what's really interesting, and we put so much emphasis on what the win is defined as. The win is defined as the medal. And yeah, within the medal count, yeah, it is, and with, the top 3 medals are, but also the win was a victory that we had, 8 strong women competing, representing individuals of color, different nations, both industrial and third world, really standing there at this level. I mean, it was the epitome of what pure sport was. And so the win was so much better. So I think we need to look at, we've got our rubrics and dashboard of what's a victory and so on, but
Right.
we can't undercount what it means with the other pieces of what is a victory.
It was powerful. I mean, even in that, I mean, I can see what you're saying with all these amazing women from all over the world and showing the world that you can run this, really hard, grueling race, kind of like what the marathon was, back as well. Or I think there was the women's triple jump that when it came in. And so there were all these things. Oh, can women really do this? And for me, I parallel that to the experience I had at the Paralympic Games, because I had been on the world stage and world class athlete, and it was surreal to be there with like this one leg now, and taking all of what I learned, all of what I knew, and pouring it into this long jump competition on this one day. And I knew, I've had conversations, and it still amazes me how people in kind of that are supposed to be in the know will always discount a gold medalist. They'll say, well, they're past their prime, or we don't. I said, you haven't been there. I said, that person's been there. You have no idea what that. You never discount ever because they know it. And so I was using every trick in the book that I knew to throw at the gold medalist. He'd won twice, Lucas Christen, and I was trying to dethrone him. And I actually jumped 1 centimeter under his world record.
Wow.
Right. So he had to either tie his world record or break it to beat me. I'm going to push this. I'm going to push him to the wall. Right.
Right. You're going to win this. I'm not giving it to you. If you win it, because you were better than me at that moment. But absolutely. I mean better than me at that moment. Because I'm on.
And so I can celebrate that, right? Because then I unpacked it of 4 years, actually a little less than 4 years, of learning how to run again, learning how to jump off the other foot, learning how to jump without damaging my good leg, because I got an artificial leg that'll scratch me up if I don't land right. Knowing what I didn't know about artificial legs. So all of this went into this whole psyche. Like, again, it's that what you're talking about, that brain, I know my body can do it, but my brain has got to believe that I can, in that short window of time, I can actually get there. So I think that's that's powerful. So we look at this, you talk about this, your insights that you had in that moment. I love how you shared that. How do you believe that insight or that lesson helps you in your current role as VP of Equity Inclusion? We see Ahmaud Arbery murdered in February. We got George Floyd murdered in May. We have in February, I think in March also is COVID, and March is also Breonna Taylor. How do you take all of this diversity that you saw, the race and what you've learned, experiences, and how do you now share that with other individuals to help them?
I think it's really easy in a way of, it's like being a team captain of non-athletes. So what you're doing is you're coming using those sports strategies and how do you define the win? What gets you there? So you figure out what you ultimately want, and then you walk it back with short-term and mid-term goals and so on. What do people need as far as skills and training? Helping people understand criticism and feedback only makes you better, not to internalize it. What are the kind of things that you can do with your own self-awareness so that you are noticing, parts of your portfolio, your skill set, your knowledge, your blind spots, and so on, that make you a better student, colleague, and participatory to strengthening the climate and the culture. I think it's really literally, and I talk to student athletes all the time, and I said, once you learn it within the sports context, because what's going to happen post sports is you're going to be the team captain of non-athletes.
Wow, I like that. The team captain of the non-athletes. One of the things I've done in some trainings is I will the executives that are in the room, they're all kind of big wig and popping their collar and stuff. And I'll say, do you remember a time when you were not picked for the team? And you should, I mean, trauma happens. People go back, they go, oh,
they're there. Or last picked at gym class, right?
Last picked, you weren't the candidate or not picked.
Right.
You got to watch from the sideline. Those type of things, I think, are the real experience because of why we feel that we need to be included. So as we're going through this kind of environment right now, people are feeling isolated. How are you showing up and kind of helping folks, in the space of this social distancing, of what you learned as an athlete, and how now that you're telling, how you get over the isolation or pushing into the space where you are not certain about what tomorrow might bring?
A lot of what we're talking about is called adaptive leadership, and it's your ability to kind of navigate the uncertainty. And so you can't necessarily focus on the things that you have no circle of control or level of control. It's more of, pretty much staying in your lane. You know what you need to do. And at some point in time, you're going to be re-engaged in a way in which it comes. But I always keep telling people, we're not going back to normal. Back to normal is what got us here. We're going forward to normal. So as we move forward to normal, there's certain skills and strategies and behavior and language that you will need. So during this time, this kind of pause of shelter in place and so on, and this remote interactions and so on, is how do I strengthen those strategies and skills and collaboration and partnerships and so on, that when we start to move back forward into our normal, that I'm value added. I'm valuable and value added to the process. So I think a lot of self-awareness right now is really important during kind of this isolation, is really, where are my opportunities to really strengthen my skills and tools?
What opportunities, what skills do you have out there that you're listening right now to Dr. Judi Brown Clarke? What skills do you think that you have? Put that in the chat box because we want to know. We want to know what skills you think you have. So when we go forward to normal, I like that term, that we will elevate and we will bring a skill set with us to that location. See, this is hard when you're talking with a medalist at the Olympic Games, because there is no, I just ain't gonna go there with you. I call it the jump as the jump, because there are a lot of people out there that say, well, how do I get there? How do I overcome this? How do I do? You gotta jump, and you gotta amputate that fear and move.
Do the work. Do your own work. Do your own work. Right.
Do your own work. I love it. And that's tough because we have these moments that I share it with in kind of this fear to freedom model. And one of the things I discovered was I had these fears when I first had the amputation, right? So I had fear of myself, cocooning around myself with Maslow's hierarchy, and like, oh my gosh, what about me? And so, is my wife going to stay with me? Is my son still going to see me as his dad? So that was kind of one thing.
Absolutely.
Then I had fears of other people. And so the other people were trying to believe for me what I could or could not do, which was based upon what they believed they could or could not do if they were in my situation. So that was like this other one. And then society fears. But what I discovered, one thing I discovered was, had I overcome the amputation of my left leg, I'd have my leg back. So to your point, normal's gone. I'm never getting that back. So I have to move forward to it. But in that moment, that redefining, I have to determine what I'm going to amputate to actually embrace this new normal mindset, as I call it. So now, you've been on some boards, you helped the United States Olympic Committee kind of with some diversity and inclusion things. What are you seeing as an athlete, kind of putting the athlete hat on? What are you seeing for the movement when we talk about Rule 50, right? So athletes having a voice now, or trying to get a voice. We saw with the NBA players with Black Lives Matter. We saw a lot of NFL teams and people doing kind of peaceful protests in their own way. What are you seeing for the athlete that wants to now maybe express themselves in their Olympic or Paralympic moment?
Yeah. So with Rule 50, which doesn't allow you to have anything other than the celebration of the medal, and so there's real protocols. It's called like sacred spaces.
Hmm.
And the thing that we need to take a step back, we think about the ancient Olympics. During that time, countries were at war. They laid down their weapons and they competed because it really was kind of Darwin, the survival of the fittest, like who's got the fittest individuals within their country. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, they literally, they'd shake hands, they'd literally go back, pick up their weapons, and go back to war. And so there's a purity of sport. That's an international thing. And, there's international competitions, world competitions, whatever, but there's something very pure and unique about the ancient and now modern Olympics. And so the tone as it relates to, the international community is really around this sacred space. So how do you have a national voice on an international platform? What does that look like? And basically right now what we're working through is what are the rules and what are the consequences? Who owns the rules? So if I'm up there as a medalist and I kneel, I own that consequence. But if we're up there as a relay and I kneel, does the relay get the consequence or just the person that took the posturing piece? What's
Yeah.
considered, what can I wear? What can I do? So we're really kind of unpacking so people make informed decisions and then it's up to them. But there's so many ways to protest, with behavior and lack of behavior.
Hmm.
What you engage, what you choose not to engage in. And so we're really trying to create portfolios for athletes to know that whether the op-ed, whether you're doing, going out and doing speeches and talk, social justice has a million points of entry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great answer. And going back and kind of honoring that piece of the history of stopping for wars. And I think that's a piece that gets lost on athletes as well as administrators, as well as we move in the modern day Olympics, where the dollar bill trying to drive drive it all. And if I get my knee on the ground, I might get some cash in my pocket.
Right.
So it's a real thing. But we've seen it, whether we're going back to Darfur and to Tibet with in Beijing, or we're going back to 68 and Dr. Tommy Smith and Dr. John Carlos, or we go back to even Jesse Owens in 36. So I think there's a lot to be kind of said as athletes are starting to get their voice in there. And one of the things I try to do with athletes is really help them articulate what it is trying to express. And so what are your sound bites that you want? So when the microphone's in front of your face, you have something that you can say, especially after a 400-meter hurdle race, and they stick a microphone in front of the face. How was that race? Well,
It's good. Right. Thank you. Right.
I gotta go throw up now.
Right.
So we have some people that are on. So Kevin and Bob O'Corsi, they're in Springfield. So thank you all for being on right now. We got Joe Peck. I think I'm supposed to be meeting with Joe coming up here in the hour coming up. Of course, Lynn has been on. And so if you're enjoying this with Dr. Judi Brown Clarke, please put her name. If you're on LinkedIn, do the @ tag her and say how much you're enjoying her presentation today. If you're on YouTube, I'm not sure if you can even do anything on YouTube. I think I saw some YouTube folks in there, so that's great. So put some comments in there as well. Follow the channel, like the channel. We're doing every Thursday at 3:12 in the afternoon. Somebody said, why 312? So 312, I'll just give you a real quick snippet. I lived at 312 South Ridgeland Avenue in Oak Park, Illinois. First address that I remember. The area code for Chicago is what? 312. My first dorm room when I went to college at the University of Arkansas, 312. Every time I wake up in the evening when I have to go to the restroom, right, because I can't make it all the way through the night, it's 312. So this is like a number that just keeps popping up. So I said, okay, I'm just going to just lean into it and do 312. So now you know why 312 is the issue. It's just the number. I don't play it. I don't play numbers. I don't do that stuff, but that's my number.
I'm not gonna play it, right?
You go play it. So I love that. So a couple more questions, and we'll get ready to wrap up here. Status and power. That's what I want to kind of talk about now. So power power is static, right? That doesn't really move. Whoever has the power has the power, but status is fluid. It kind of shifts around, and a lot of times, people that have status are demanding more power from those that have power. So what power people do is they give more status to kind of squelch the status quo. Maybe to get rid of. Dr. Harry Edwards talks about the pervasive demand. That's what he always talks about. The advocacy group that's fighting for. So when you're looking at this from a standpoint, it can be either athletics or in your work that you're doing now at the university. How do you help the people that have status kind of jump to take power?
Yeah. So one of the things that I talk to when I talk to people that have status and they have some kind of a conviction or something that they want to advocate or champion, I define power very different. Power is being in the room, at the table, at the head of the table, in control of the agenda. So most people think it's just a person at the head of the room. You're the chair, you're the president, no. Whoever is in control of the agenda has the power. And most of the time, it's not the person in front of the room. It's somebody sitting not even in the room or somebody sitting on the side of the table, because what they're doing is what's on the agenda is your core values and your mission and where you're going to spend your time, your money, your communication, and your efforts. And so to really make meaningful change, you have to find a pathway to the agenda, so that you have control over what we're talking about, how we're talking about it, who we're talking about it with, when do we talk about it, and how are we resourcing it. That's power.
Wow. So give me like a strategy for, because my head's spinning now. So give me a little strategy for how that can happen. Here's where my mind's at. It's with Lin-Manuel, right? It's in the room where it happens, right? So how do we get like a bird to get in the room where decisions are being made, and he's kind of on the outside as it was depicted in the Hamlet?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that you want to do is you have to figure out who are the influencers. I mean, that doesn't happen in the room. That's the meeting before the meeting. So you have to know that most meetings, there was a meeting before the meeting, and they're just going through pro forma to do whatever it is was decided at the initial meeting. So when you think about who are the influencers and the power brokers and so on, that's, so you look at who's in the room and you figure, okay, what's on the agenda? What are you deciding? And then you have to think of who influences that decision, who has the ability to take that to fruition or have some level of direction on how that's going to play out. And then, because that's the other meeting you want to watch, and that's the other dynamic you want to watch. So literally, it's like before, if you ever played basketball and they're playing a tournament, you watch the game before your game. So it's really like watching tapes in sport. It's like, how it's done and look how they're influencing, because change agents and influencers have a very, very subtle and a very quiet way in which they lead. That's how they get a lot done, because they're not leading necessarily from the front. It's that quiet conversation in the corner over there. And so trying to figure out, who's talking to who's playing off of who's are they referencing when they're talking about, I had a conversation with so-and-so and we kind of came up with that. I'm sorry, when was that conversation? So try to figure out who's in control, who are the influencers, and then watch them in work start to actually navigate decision making.
Wow. Yeah, that's really that's fascinating. We need to talk more about that. Not today, but we're going to talk. I got you on speed dial now, so you're not getting away. We're gonna talk a little more about this one.
Covert.
Covert, right? Yeah, because you're an influencer, mover, shaker. I got to rub elbows out. How you doing that, Dr. Clarke? And so Donna says, "Hey, hi, Judi. Donna Callahan from WABN cohort." Yeah.
That is so great. She's one of my teammates. That's so cool.
She's a rock star. She's a rock star and doing great work with her organization that she's out there. I was just on her show the other week, and did a great job bringing a community consortium together. Final thought, final question here is really, as we turn our attention now to the games that we hope will go off next year if we get out of this thing in Tokyo. Yes. And so I've been approached by a few athletes, and they have asked, how do you get yourself marketed? I just want someone to sponsor me, because we know in the United States, we don't have a lot of funding that comes to direct athlete support, unless you're really, high level in a national governing body of sport that has some capital, some resources, and you are in the top level. You're probably busting suds someplace to make your dreams come true. Yeah. So athletes reach out and they ask, I see you on LinkedIn. I see you, doing these things. I see Dr. Clarke, you're all over the place, and, you're really, respecting the community. How do I get there? So what's your advice to some of the athletes on how to market themselves in a way that they can, glean maybe in these last few months, a little bit of sponsorship to go into the gaming up?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really, pure sport, many times you have to be on top for a while before you get that recognition, you get that sponsorship. So how do you get noticed? You get noticed because you're outstanding and you're standing out. So what is standing out about you? So you have to figure out if there's a particular company that you want to sponsor you and you want to develop this relationship, what is it they need? And so when you look at the core values of that corporation or that business or whatever it is, do you represent their corporate values and their core values? If so, how do you create the argument to show that you can be an ambassador for what they, what is essential to their strategic planning or who they see as their branding and so on? And so you need to be valuable. You start off being value added before you're valuable. So be value added first. And then once you're value added, then you slide over and you become valuable. And then that's when you start becoming the power. So what is it? What do you need? Feed a little bit back to them and think about the things that are in your portfolio that represent that company.
Now, I hope you athletes out there are listening to that, because that's exactly what I've been telling you. That was a palm drop right there, palm drop. So if you're out there and you're training, doggone it, and you are wearing a certain clothing brand, tag them. Yeah. And then when they tag you back, ask who that was. Right. And then when we find out who it was, send them a box of chocolates.
Yeah. Right. And interview them. It's okay to code call.
Absolutely.
Let them turn you down. Just call them and say, I have a couple questions. What do you look for when you brand with an athlete? What are some of the things that what are some of the core qualities that you're looking for? And then you have to have some self-awareness, because you may not have it. So what do you need to do to build up your persona and your skill set so that you're replicating the values of the company that you want to have a relationship with?
Wow. Dr. Judi Brown Clarke. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. You are just
my pleasure.
That was just wicked great. So a lot of good comments that came in here. Lynn says, love better at me at the moment. We must have been talking about something else. I'm not sure what that was going on. I forgot, but that's good. So thanks, Lynn. Yep. You're out there. Good. And then of course I put Donna back up. That was just awesome that she made that comment in there. Oh, she gets hearts now. She's giving out hearts.
My teammate.
Well, we wish you the best success. Stay on for a few minutes. I'm going to close the show out, and I'll wrap up with you in a few minutes here. Right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, everybody, that is it for Inspirers and Maximizers of Pivotal Moments. So here's what's going on. I got my little cheat sheet here because there's a lot happening. First of all, we have a lot that's happening in that Facebook group right now. So I'm trying to keep up, because there's remember I started off like a month and a half ago with 0, and now we have like 250 about ish there. So we're going to try to build it to 1,000, and then we're going to start doing some really cool stuff in there. So start getting in that room. So we have you go to amputatefear.com. Well, actually, you go to facebook.com/groups/amputatefear. Facebook.com/groups/amputatefear, and you'll be in that. I have a free download for you that you always can get. If you go to amputatefear.com, you can get a free download on the pathway from fear to freedom. And then here's the cool thing: 10 power stories to impact any leader. I wrote that book over during COVID, y'all, and somebody asked me to do a book club with it. Holy cow! I've never done a book club like that. Me, author, writer, did a book club. It was great. We had a fun time talking about the stories. And then, so I'm writing my next book, and I'm also in the next book. Let me see. I'm not sure what I'm calling it. I think it's going to be Hurdlers Diversity or something like that. But I'm looking for your input. And the input I'm getting is for the people that are in that Facebook group, because I have some specific questions I'm asking each one of you. Then the next JR, and they're going to do a JR Live on December 3rd. I'm with that. So make sure you're looking to sign up for that, because we're going to have a great time. I'm just going to start talking about all the stuff that's happened this year and how we can springboard into 2021. So invite your friends on. We're going to have just an amazing time there. So remember, you are the inspirations. Inspiration, you are the catalyst to motivation. Motivation in turn causes actions. Actions then lead us to transformational results. And those transformational results, guess what? They re-inspire us, they re-inspire you, and they re-inspire all the people that are watching and following you. So go is your command. Forth is your direction. Inspire is your vocation. Your, because this is personal to you, only you can do it. And world, because this is your sphere of influence. Go forth, inspire your world. My name's John Register. We'll see you back here next week at 3:12 in the afternoon Mountain Time on Hurdlers of Adversity, Inspirers and Maximizers of Pivotal Moments. Bye for now.